All right, well, good morning. Thank you for bearing the wonderful weather to come. We're really excited about doing this program on cryptocurrency and investments, especially. And this is being recorded, so on the little card at the bottom is our YouTube channel. Please forward this to at least 3 people. It could be anyone in the country. FINRA, who is our featured speaker today, is a national organization, so they have jurisdiction everywhere. My name is Tracy Rezvani. I'm with the Howard County Office of Consumer Protection, and we are very, very thrilled to have Christine here today from FINRA, and she will talk about her agency, how she works for folks like you, and how we support your consumer health overall. And so I'm going to hand it over to Christine.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
It does not feel like August. It feels a little like early October or something, or late September. Yeah, I'll give it that. Well, thank you for being here today. As Tracy mentioned, I'm Christine Kieffer, and I'll tell you who FINRA is in just a minute, so we don't need to worry about that. But I've spent about 25 years, a little over 25 years, working in the financial services sector, mostly at FINRA, which is a financial regulator, but I also spent 5.5 years at the NASDAQ stock market working on issues related to stocks and investing. So that's mostly what we're going to be talking about today, is recognizing crypto and other investment scams, because they're not all crypto related, but I'll give you a little bit of a primer so that you can learn to recognize the red flags yourself and avoid being victimized.
Let us know what is crypto.
Let you know what is crypto?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I have some slides on that and some not directly about what is crypto, but we can talk about that a little bit, okay? Certainly. First off, though, who is FINRA? FINRA is the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. FINRA regulates all stockbrokers and brokerage firms in the United States. So the stock trading, platforms and brokerage firms that you hear about, they're members of FINRA. You might also remember an organization called NASD, the National Association of Securities Dealers. That is FINRA. So we evolved in 2007, merged with another regulator, and became FINRA. But it's our job as a nonprofit, non-governmental agency to make sure that the brokers and brokerage firms that we oversee are following the rules, that they're providing the right kind of sales practice, customer service to you, that they're not violating any securities rules. But we're not part of the government, but we do work under the oversight of the Securities and Exchange Commission, and I'm going to call out my colleague Nicole, who's here from the SEC today as well, and we'll talk a little bit about how you work with FINRA, the SEC, and then there's also state securities regulators. So there's one here in Maryland, there's one in every state, as well as in Canadian provinces. And as I mentioned, it's our job to make sure that the brokers and the brokerage firms are following the rules and that you as an investor are protected. Our entire mission is investor protection. That's about you, the retail, and we're, what do I call, retail investors, the consumer, but also about market integrity. What happens when a marketplace is not trustworthy?
People get scammed.
People get scammed, you don't want to buy from it, and the market dissolves, right? It kind of goes away, and a new market forms somewhere else. So it's part of our role, the SEC's role, and the state securities regulators' role, to make sure that there's integrity in the marketplace, that you trust in the marketplace, so that you can reap the benefits of the investing world, and that we have good opportunities for capital formation in the United States, where businesses can go public and utilize that money to expand. All right, so, and I also represent the FINRA Investor Education Foundation, which is a part of FINRA, and it's our role to be out in the public, to work with law enforcement and a lot of other organizations like Better Business Bureaus and AARP to help further investor education in the community. Now, we're here today to talk about fraud and scams, so I just want to set the stage a little bit. How many of you came today because you're worried about frauds and scams that are happening today. All right. That was a little bit of a leading question because you took the effort to be here because you know this is important. And I hope that you remember that by coming here, you're making an important step in your life, but you can take the information you learned today to share with others who may not have thought that they needed to learn this information, but in fact, we're all at risk of fraud in some capacity, even our law enforcement friends. It sometimes happens. And we'll talk about why that is in just a minute. But just to set the stage, I've got some statistics from 2024. This is the Federal Trade Commission, but there's also statistics that are being gathered by the Internet Crime Complaint Center, which is the FBI's data portal for crime statistics. And in 2024, we had 2.6 million fraud reports in the United States. Do you think everybody reports? No, that's why there's a big iceberg here. You can't quite tell in the color because of the color of the lighting in the room, but there's an iceberg here because while we had 2.6 million reports to the Federal Trade Commission, there's a lot that goes unreported, and underreported. But the FTC's data shows $12.5 billion lost to fraud and scams in 2024. Last year, not the 2024 data yet, but the year before, the number was about $10 billion in losses, and they did what we call an extrapolation to account for underreporting. So they said, what do we think the number really is if we think about how much underreporting there is? And last year, they even estimated it to be $158 billion. So this $12.5 billion is a big number. But if you actually extrapolated this out, we're talking about $170 billion, potentially much more. And individuals every day are being scammed in the United States and around the world. This is not just a problem of the US, it's a global problem. We'll talk about that a bit more. And according to the Better Business Bureau, some of the top reported frauds, actually that's FTC data too, are imposter scams. We're gonna talk about imposters because that really categorizes a lot of different types of scam scenarios. Online shopping, negative reviews, we're not really gonna talk about that because it's a little more straightforward for what it is. Business and job opportunities, just yesterday, I received 3 offers for employment from Shauna at Indeed, who sent me a text saying I could make $500 an hour, right? So there's a lot of job opportunity scams as well. Investment scams. This is the one we're going to focus on today for the most part. Investment scams didn't used to be in the top 5 of losses and has been moving up. And that is really where we're going to focus today. And that's why you're here today. We're going to talk about the risks for investors. Now, as we get started, I just want to ask a couple of level-setting questions. How many of you invest in some way through the stock markets? Right? Most everybody here, right? And that's probably why you were interested in this class too. And some of us invest just solely as part of our retirement savings strategies through an employer-sponsored plan. And some people dabble on their own with their own investment decisions. And some people work with a professional. Some people do all 3 of those things or any 2 of those things. And that's okay. All of these risks are relevant to all of us as consumers and investors. So I mentioned that imposter scams as a category is the biggest category of scams today. Pretty much every scam can fall into some sort of imposter situation, and it's that much more prevalent with the use of the internet, potentially the use of artificial intelligence, which we're going to talk about in a minute as well. And imposter scams are not singular. There's tons of different types of imposter scams. So FINRA is sometimes impostered. We get emails and communications from overseas investors who said that they got a letter, an email from FINRA demanding upfront payment on something. FINRA didn't send that. FINRA is being impostered. Law enforcement are impostered. Many years ago, did any of you get the phone calls where it said you were late on your taxes and that the local police were going to come to your door? Yep. My mother-in-law lives right here in Leisure World, and she used to call me, oh, I got that call again. I'm like, just ignore it. It really is an imposter. You know, you can find out if you're behind on your taxes in other ways. So there's lots of different types of imposters. There's government imposters. The Securities and Exchange Commission is impostered. We as individuals are sometimes impostered, right? So we have to, instead of in the past being able to believe that somebody is who they say they are, we kind of need to take the forefront right now that anything can be impostered. So how do I validate that information? Did somebody say? Okay. And so I have a little example here. You're not even going to be able to read it yet, but there's a text that that my colleague received from someone at a U.S. investment house who was offering them 300% returns and that they should join a WhatsApp chat group. Do you think that that smells real or like a scam? It smells like a scam to me too. Let's point out those flags a little bit. All right. I mentioned that investment fraud has been rising in terms of prevalence, not just in the United States, but all around the world. Some of that, and we're going to talk about crypto, some of that relates to the lure of new technology and new forms of payment and the lack of information that we have about a lot of these things, right? So crypto scams are lumped into the investment scam category at the Federal Trade Commission, and I think also at the IC3, the Internet Crime Complaint Center. But you can see that the numbers are up, 5.7 billion in 2024 losses. Again, underreported. The Better Business Bureau also tracks consumer complaints related to fraud and scams. And they did an analysis across different age groups. And it's not just you and me who are being targeted. It's not any specific age group. It's everyone is being targeted specifically by investment-related scams today. Other types of scams, so the business opportunity, the job opportunity types of scams, tend to target younger populations, people who may be more looking for outside of the home work and therefore might be enticed by the pitches. And so different types of scams. Employment is number one for the younger categories, but it still shows up across. Romance and friendship is really important category as well. We're going to talk about that. It's not just romance. The word friendship, companionship, is part of this equation. It's not just romance. So if you're not looking for a romance, don't think that doesn't mean someone won't try to use those same lures. So we're going to talk about a couple of the ways that investment scams are happening today. The first one that FINRA sees a lot of, and we've been working with some of the social media platforms to try to combat this, are social media investment club scams. Do any of you have social media accounts? Okay, it's okay if you do, if you don't. But this is one where legitimate or real advertising has been purchased by someone who's impostoring. They might be impostoring a celebrity. In this case, they were impostoring, these are real ads that were leading to real scams. This person on the left, Jim Cramer, is kind of like a celebrity investment person, media profile. And we also have Kathy Wood, and we have some other individuals who are kind of known as investment professionals widely. And they're being impostered. Real ads were purchased under their names, Jim Cramer, Kathy Wood, and used to pitch investments to individuals. This is still happening today. These particular individuals, the fraudsters have kind of moved on from, but they've got new people that they're impersonating all the time. Now, some of the things that we can see in these ads is that both of them, you can't really read it, but I can read it, encourage the user to go off of that social media platform to an encrypted chat platform. So encrypted chat, there's several different brands, so it's not any single one, but I'll just name them as examples. So WhatsApp is an encrypted chat platform, Telegram, WeChat. If you've heard some of these are technologies that allow people to chat back and forth, and they're behind an encryption, a technology encryption, so that they're not easy to crack and track and monitor, right? So the fraudsters really like encrypted chat platforms because it's harder for law enforcement to get in there and see what they're saying and see what they're doing because it's behind an encryption algorithm. But they're looking for investors in mainstream places, in the places that we go, right? So we have to be very, very careful. A couple of the flags here. If any of these ads are encouraging you to go off the channel you're on to an encrypted chat, that's your first biggest red flag that you should just not be a part of it. Another big red flag would be, dangling stock tips publicly on the internet, right? But that might be, on any given day, might be really enticing for people. When we talk to people about what made a pitch appealing to you, many individuals will say, well, there was an opportunity for financial gain. Is that in and of itself wrong? No. Maybe you needed a quick turnaround. Maybe you're paying for a grandchild's college or a wedding, or you're paying off some debts, or you want to buy your home outright. There's all sorts of motivations that we have for wanting to fulfill that need, and the fraudsters know that. Now, the people behind this type of scam and the ones I'm going to show you today are typically, most of these investment frauds today, they're still the local person who might be violating rules, and hopefully our local law enforcement will help us find those individuals. But a lot of the individuals that are perpetrating these scams today are transnational criminal organizations. And by that, I mean, Southeast Asian criminal operations, Mexican drug cartels, not limited to those. Those are just two examples. Now, if I had actually clicked on that Social Media Investment Club ad because I wanted to get investment tips, and I wanted to join a club that gave me an edge, and I went to the encrypted chat, this is what I would see. Now, in this particular case, this is something I was added to automatically. I have one of those encrypted chat platforms on my phone. Sometimes I use it with relatives that are in Europe. And I was automatically added to an investment club. Sometimes you're automatically added. And I followed it for a little while because this is what I do for work, so I find it interesting, but I didn't communicate. And we saw that they were saying, this particular stock has accumulated returns, and if you didn't sell it yet, you can sell it now for a higher return, and we're predicting what was going to happen tomorrow. And then we're going to talk to you about there's a digital transformation, and it all sounds so interesting and cutting edge and slightly out of my knowledge zone, but interesting. And I want to be an insider on this. Who didn't wish that they got in on some of those .com stocks at the very beginning before the crash, right? Yeah. And so they send you some suggestions of future prices and earnings and opportunity, right? They're, again, trying to convince us that this is legitimate and that they have information that we could utilize to our benefit. Now, if I followed that chat longer, what we would see is this is what we would call a traditional pump and dump scheme. Does anybody know what pump and dump is? Tracy does, all right. I'll explain it. Yep, you do. Okay.
It's called front runners, isn't it? Where they front run the stock and then they sell out when you get into it?
Pretty much, yeah. So they probably, these individuals, this organization, the people behind this scheme in particular, would have pre-purchased or have some other way to pre-own shares in this particular stock. Then they go out and promote it widely, maybe not directly, maybe they hire someone else to do promotion. Scams are a multi-tiered business operation. It's not just that the one person calling you on the phone or texting you is behind it. They're just a cog in that business wheel. And so there's promoters who will be out there promoting the stock. So those are the people that bought the ad, that are running the chat to encourage me to invest in this particular stock. Now, if I purchase that stock it would look like it was going up for a while. Today we're seeing they don't crash right away like they used to. But the people that are pushing it, they're just trying to encourage others to buy stock. Because what happens when demand for a particular stock goes up? Price rises, right? When more people want it, then they're willing to pay more for it, right? The price rises. And the bad guys, the bad actors got in at the front at a low price, and they falsely inflate the demand. The price rises, more and more individuals come in, and then they sell. Now they own enough at this point that when they sell, they flood the market with so many shares that there's not enough people to want to buy them. And so what happens when there's low demand? Right. So this is what happens. You can't quite see the full chart, but you can see the arrows, right? So as they're promoting it, the price is going up. And as soon as the promoters or the people behind the scheme sell their shares, the price goes down. And what happens to all the people that bought at the end? They have potentially worthless stock. Oftentimes, the stock that they're promoting, the company behind that, has no idea they're being promoted and is not involved. Sometimes they are, but oftentimes they're not. So this is really what we would call an old-fashioned pump and dump scheme in new clothes. Entice investors to invest at falsely inflated prices and then sell. In this case, you would lose your investment and your future opportunity for investment in this particular stock. Now, oops, I went the wrong direction. We'll talk about how that also relates to crypto, because the same kind of scenario can be used to promote cryptocurrencies. Now, relationship investment scams. I actually got one of these texts yesterday, and I had to share it with you today. I'm in the middle. I just sent my oldest son to college, and I've been doing a lot of business travel lately, and I've got some work things going on. A lot of people have my phone number, and I got this number. It said, "Can I have a conversation for a couple of minutes?" Would you want to respond to that? Would you want to? I know you know not to, but would you want to? I did. I was driving. I just left my son in college. I didn't know what the number was from, but it said, "Can I have a conversation for a couple of minutes?" Sometimes business people have my number. Sometimes they text me, even though I'm not supposed to use text, right, through my work. That one stopped me. I didn't respond to it, but it stopped me. They're really good at what they do. These are other ones I've received. "You forgot your bag." I was in an airport. I could have forgotten a bag, right? Okay. "Why can't I reach you by phone? Have you blacklisted me?" That one felt a little aggressive, which is not really my style, so that one didn't appeal to me as much, but it might appeal to someone who really especially wants to be pleasing to others and doesn't like to be rude, right? I would be encouraged to write back, or "Are you home?" I got one that said, "Can your daughter come to my son's birthday party this weekend?" Now, I only have sons, so that one was a clear giveaway to me. But the point being, the way these relationship investment scams are happening, they come in really subtly. And why do you think that they start this way?
It's intriguing.
It's intriguing. It encourages you to write back. And what happens when you write back?
You've acknowledged your phone number and your contact.
Okay, so good. So you've acknowledged you're a real person. You've also acknowledged that you're willing to engage, that you will communicate back. So the very, very first thing you should do when you receive an unknown text or email is just double check that it's not really somebody in your contacts list and find another way to reach out to that person and say, "Hey, did you just send me a text? Seemed out of context for you," right? Hit report junk. They've made it a lot easier today on the latest models of our phones to be able to hit report junk and to notify, "Hey, this sender is not in your contacts list." And I'll show you a few more things that you can investigate if it's something that really interests you or you think maybe this one is legit, maybe I should investigate it. Let's talk about what you should be looking for. Yeah.
For those who are in the workforce, I took a call from a realtor last week
Oh.
who got contacted from a prospect from out of state who was looking to move in. And in the conversations about trying to find a neighborhood to move into, they started talking about how he's a stockbroker and here's a great tip. And the next thing you know, she's $30,000 into a crypto investment. So they're going after people who have no choice but to answer their phones, like realtors and folks that are directly working with the public. So that's how they're striking up the relationships.
That's absolutely true. And so it can happen in a business context. It can happen out of a business context. It can happen in a personal context. The key is let's start to recognize what those flags are and when to put our wall up right away. But you're right. If someone is supposed to be answering the phone. Now, if I had texted any of those text backs, let's just say they would write me back and say, I'll say, oh gosh, I am at the airport. I just checked and I got all my bags. It must be somebody else's. Let's say I've responded. They would say, let's just guess. They would say, oh my goodness, you are the nicest person. Most people would not have taken the time to write me back. But you did, and wow, now we can help someone else. Hey, where are you flying to? Oh, I'm off to Florida to visit my parents, blah, 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 okay? Oh gosh, I have family in Florida too. Which coast? Oh, okay. So now we're starting to build a friendship. Just a little silly friendship, and maybe I'm alone at the airport for the next 5 hours because my flight got delayed, and I enjoy having someone to banter with. Is there harm? Yes, there is harm, because this is the beginning of an investment scam. It starts with innocent conversation and will eventually lead to either a crypto investment platform, a fake crypto investment platform. We can talk a little bit about what that means, fake crypto investment platform, or some sort of like the pump and dump I just talked about. Like, oh, my uncle trades stocks and he told me about this great stock and maybe it had been gone on for months. So here's an example of a text that my colleague received. So it says, this is someone they had been communicating with a little bit, and it says, what are you up to right now? And then the scammer, well, who we don't know is a scammer yet, but is a scammer, says, I'm reading a book. I'm probably going to bed. What book are you reading? A book about investing in crypto. Nice. You should teach me. Make me your student. I don't want you to be my student. I want you to be my wife. Now, this one had a romantic, they had been communicating for a little while. There was a romantic end to this. You do? Yeah, okay. Well, you know, to each his own. And the point being, this was just, let me start out with innocent conversation and then just turn it into, oh, I'm doing this thing. You don't want to know anything about it. Oh, but I do want to know about it. Maybe you can teach me. Oh, well, remember that new car I bought last week? Well, I paid cash for it because I cashed out this crypto that I had. Gosh, I wish I could make a quick, turnaround. I want to pay my house off, right? So you can see how it might sound innocent enough at the beginning. The point is these criminals are really good at what they do. 2 days later, in this particular case, this is a real case actually, 2 days later, this woman was being taught how to trade cryptocurrency through a fake cryptocurrency platform. Ultimately, the different ones I've shown you, so the added to an encrypted chat, or going to an encrypted chat for an investment club and investment tips, or the relationship investment scam that I was just showing, plays out in one of two ways. One is the pump and dump investment scenario that we already talked about, and the other is some sort of cryptocurrency ploy. Now, cryptocurrency is a thing. It is a legitimate technology, and people can invest in cryptocurrency. There's a couple different ways you can choose to invest in the field, the types of technology that relate to cryptocurrency. So in that way, you sort of reap the benefits or risks of a new industry. Or you could, you know, buy a cryptocurrency. So Bitcoin is a common name. So I'll just use that as an example. Or Ether, or there's Litecoin. There's lots of different. There's Dogecoin, right? You could invest in some sort of cryptocurrency, like buy it, and then hope that the demand for it increases and therefore the price increases, right? Sort of same concept. You could consider that an investment. I want to ask you, before you think about cryptocurrency, or as you think about cryptocurrency, have you ever been enticed to buy foreign currency in another country in order to hope that it goes up in value against the dollar? Okay. So that might also be the same type of consideration you would think about if you're thinking about cryptocurrency. Do I want to put my money into something and hope that other people want it and therefore it goes up in value? If that's not something I would normally do, then you can say maybe that's not something I would want to do here either. It's just another form of, well, it's not just another form of payment, but that's what it's sort of originally intended as. Now, the fraudsters are using crypto just as the hook. Most of the time, what they do, so in order to trade cryptocurrency, so in order to trade a stock, where do you go? You go to some sort of brokerage firm platform, right? It might be on your phone, it might be on your watch, it might be on your desktop computer, or it might be a phone call to an investment professional, right? But you go to a place, virtual place, a place where other people are looking to buy the stock and you're looking to sell the stock, or vice versa, and you meet there. That's called the stock market, let's just say. So in cryptocurrency, if I want to trade a cryptocurrency, I have to go to a place that has the cryptocurrency, or a place to park my cryptocurrency to trade it with someone else. And so we call those crypto trading platforms. It's a place where people can go to either store, depending upon, there's different types of storage methods, I'm not going to go into that, but where they can then buy and sell cryptocurrency. That would be a platform, a trading platform. Just think of it like a brokerage account without all of the regulation. No, Robinhood is a brokerage firm that's registered with FINRA, and but they also enable some trading in crypto type assets. It's a little confusing, but Robinhood is so an example of a crypto trading platform would be like Coinbase. Have you heard of Coinbase? Yeah, so that would be an example. And so ultimately, these scammers, though, they will tell you to go and buy. I'm just going to use Bitcoin as an example. Bitcoin's not an enemy here. Buy Bitcoin. And they might say to you, hey, you can get, and you say, well, where do I get Bitcoin? I mean, I know if I want to get euros, or I can go to the Thomas, whatever it is, the exchange. I can go to a place where I exchange one money for another money, right? Where do I exchange my money? Well, unfortunately, there's ATMs where you can actually put US dollars in and get the equivalent value of cryptocurrency at that moment. Or there are other ways. So online, you can also do this. So the ploy here is that this fraudster will say, well, you can only pay me in cryptocurrency, or we're going to trade in cryptocurrency. So you just need to convert some US dollars into the cryptocurrency that I'm telling you. And then I want you to have it live in this place, this platform. Let's just call it the garage. So park it in this garage, okay? That's the platform. The problem is that because it's all electronic and we're not like physically dealing with it, what we don't know is these fraudsters are oftentimes making these platforms up. And so you put it somewhere, it looks safe. You might even watch it rise. You might be able to watch it rise in value in relation to what you think the real price of that cryptocurrency is today. You might be able to withdraw a little bit. So let's say you take $10,000, you convert it into a cryptocurrency, and you park it in the garage they told you to park it in. Because this platform they know how to use, and they can teach you how to use it to do trading. So they take that, you'll be able to watch it on your electronic dashboard. But the thing is, they're manipulating it behind the scenes. So ultimately, even though it looks like you can take some money out, it looks like it's going up, this platform is not regulated, it's not registered, and it's probably not legitimate at all. It's just a website that somebody is manipulating.
So it's not really the concept of crypto itself that's bad, it's the other players, the platforms, is that what it is?
I'm completely agnostic about whether crypto is bad or good. It's not about the crypto. It's about the manipulation of the fraudster, particularly using something that is less familiar and sounds interesting and sounds like the future, and using that to manipulate us. So whether it's not that in this particular case, you might have bought real cryptocurrency and put it into this platform, but ultimately you just gave the fraudster your cryptocurrency. And because there's not a regulatory scheme around it, it makes it that much more difficult for you to have any sort of recourse if something goes wrong. So typically they'll say, park it here, watch it grow. Yes, and you watch it and you're excited and it sounds great. And then they'll say, oh my gosh, to reach the next level of distributions, you need to put in an extra $100,000 because then your return will be higher, and you do. And then they say, oh, in order to make that $10,000 withdrawal, you have to still maintain a minimum balance of this. So if you put 5,000 more in, then you'll get to the next level. So there's a lot of what we call lulling, right? Encouragement to add more, to borrow from friends and family. We see individuals who mortgage their homes, take out home equity lines of credit, use that cash to make these investments. And so the big red flags here are that they're dangling returns, that there's a lot of secrecy. Most typically, they'll say, don't tell anybody else about this deal. What do you say when somebody says, don't tell anybody else?
You want to tell somebody.
Megaphone. All right. Yeah. I know that's not great for your intimate relationships, but it is really good when it comes to your investments. Investments are not secrets. When you heard about a secret investment, you were one of the millions of people that heard about that secret investment. It's not secret, right? There's all sorts of disclosure requirements. There's a whole regulatory scheme around legitimate investments. And so anytime you think you're getting some hot tip, a lot of other people already know about it. So if somebody says this is a secret, that should be a huge, huge red flag. Also, that there's a promotion of, stocks that you've kind of like never heard of that might be typically really low priced, that could be manipulated in a pump and dump scheme, or there's some sort of enticement to buy crypto. And you might see initial gains, and you're absolutely going to be enticed to keep adding funds. It doesn't start with one big ask. They don't say, hey, take $250,000 and put it immediately into this investment. They might, but they probably won't. And why? They want to gain your trust first. Also, there are lots of different regulations in the United States for withdrawals of money and other people looking, and so they want to stay under the radar. So they might say, take $20,000 and tell your investment professional you're doing home renovations. It sounds really, to us, like who would do that? Millions and millions of people, because they are being manipulated emotionally. Oops, wait, I'm going backwards the wrong way. So we're going to talk about that. There's other types of cyber-related scams. I'm not going to worry about those today. What we're going to worry about is, what are the emotions? So the Conn's whole playbook is about building emotion. And they build it in a couple of ways. The most important, or the first way, usually the entry point, is source credibility. So when I stood up here today, before I even told you who my organization was, I said, oh, I've got 25 years of this, and I threw out the name of an organization you're familiar with, NASDAQ stock market. Why did I do that? Credibility. I'm building my credibility. Our friend here in the police department, he's wearing his, I mean, he's on the job, so he's supposed to be wearing his uniform. But at the same time, it's a credibility thing. It says, I am who I look like I am, right? The fraudsters manipulate credibility because it's a shortcut to trust. So those imposters are just a shortcut to trust. The impostoring is part of the scam, but it's not the end result of the scam. The result of the scam is that they built your trust so that you don't question the rest of the deal. All right? And then phantom riches. We saw that in the texts. Oh, you can get these kinds of returns in this many days. So phantom riches in the investment space might be considered guarantees, risk-free. If someone says that you have a risk-free and they use the word investment, be incredibly skeptical. I'd love to say just walk the other way, because all investments come with risk. We don't know what's going to happen tonight when we go to bed that could happen in the world that could change the economy in a way that puts us at risk. Some things are out of our control and some things are definitely within our realm of control. So there's lots of different types of risk, but there's always risk to investing. Many times, does anybody get mailers for free meals, seminars to learn about investing? Yeah, I see smiles. I get them too. I'm not allowed to go unless I disclose I'm with FINRA, so I don't. But yeah, a free lunch, a free meal. I am not saying the individuals that sent you those are scammers. It's a marketing tactic. But the scammers use the same marketing tactics and they put them on steroids. They make them more intense. And why are they using all these tactics? To build our emotion, because it's our emotion that gets us to overlook the red flags. It's our emotions that get us to go to that crypto ATM or to take a HELOC or to ask to borrow funds from another individual for that return, because at that moment, we're not thinking in our logical space. And that's also why they want you to keep a secret. So telling someone else has 3 protective strategies. Actually, I'm going to save this because I got a slide about this. Let's look at the red flags. So moving this conversation to an encrypted chat. Red flag. Is that a red flag if my sister in Germany says it to me? No. I know it's her. I know her number, right? But it's a red flag when it comes in the other forms we were talking about today. Hundreds of investors just like you have profited from this strategy. That's a social consensus tactic. So when it happens for other people, we think it might happen for us too. We also think that maybe somebody else did their homework and therefore it's a legitimate thing. And so it's just, again, these are all shortcuts to trust, to build our emotion, to get us to listen to what they want us to do. And the benefit of you being here today is that you're going to be able to recognize that emotion. You may not know all the tactics, but when you feel that emotion rising in these decisions, that's reason number 1 to just step back and talk to someone else before you do anything.
Are they prepared to provide you with references if you say this is what I want?
Sure. Okay. So what happens if I give you references for me?
I still don't, unless I check them out, I still can't verify that they're real.
Yeah, I mean, I could have what we call shills, individuals that I've lined up to be my references, who you could call, email. So a lot of times you see testimonials on these sites, right? Testimonials are a marketing tactic. Is it wrong to have a testimonial? No, certain types might be against the Federal Trade Commission's guidelines. It depends. But the point being, these are ways to just lull us into trust. And so now, legitimate investment professionals, we'll talk about how you could check them out. One unbiased way you can do that. I'm talking a lot, so let me quickly talk about artificial intelligence. So we hear a lot of hype right now about artificial intelligence, whether it's like hype because it's really happening. We're using it in our businesses in some ways. It can help you write a better paragraph sometimes. You know what else it's doing? It's helping the scammers write better pitches. So who remembers the emails that we used to get from the Nigerian prince? Yeah. Yeah. Have you gotten that one in a while?
No, I
Yes.
haven't gotten it yet.
Oh, you still got that one, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah, that one's not as common anymore, in part because what we were told before, right? We were told, look for typos. Listen for an unusual accent that doesn't seem like it would be associated with, whatever you think you're dealing with, right? Well, artificial intelligence and technology have removed those as good red flags because the scammer scripts are that much better. And the ability to do fake voices. So sometimes we see situations where, particularly people who have grandchildren, anybody here have a grandchild? Okay, who receive a call, usually early in the morning or middle of the night, and it's from a grandchild in distress on spring break in Mexico, or has a DUI, or otherwise arrested in some way and needs your help. And it sounds like your grandchild. Unfortunately, artificial intelligence and technology today, voice cloning is becoming more and more easy to do. And so we have to just use every spidey sense that we have to say, I don't trust this until I've verified it. You used to always hear verify but, or trust but verify. And I want you to walk away today and say mistrust and verify. Mistrust first, maybe don't be rude, right? But you need to verify information, because artificial intelligence in particular is ramping up how easy it is to fake videos, to fake voices, to fake documents. It's very easy for somebody to go make a business card at a business center. And they can put anything they want on it. And unless the police or the Federal Trade Commission, somebody finds out that they are doing it, you might trust them because they gave you a business card that says something on it. We need to find other ways to verify. Sometimes that means going to a marketplace that's regulated, that we know is other people are looking at, to make sure that the people operating in that space have other ways to being verified. So that means the first thing you do, take a pause. When they say don't tell anybody about this deal, let's move this to encrypted chat, take a pause right then and there. Don't take any action in that moment. Don't engage with unsolicited outreach. You've already heard before, don't click on suspicious texts, right? But what's suspicious? Maybe it sounds real. I got one last night, and it said, has anybody used Evite before, for parties and things? Yeah. Okay, so it was in my spam filter, but sometimes legitimate stuff goes into your spam filter. And it said, Jim, somebody inviting you via Evite. And I was like, I don't know a Jim Pruitt, I know a Tim Pruitt, but maybe it's his brother, maybe this is a surprise party, right? I wanted to click it. But I had to do some other research before I did, because I wanted to know. So I went directly to the Evite app on my phone and said, did I get an Evite? And there was nothing there. So that one was a spam. The point being, they want you to feel like you should engage, but first you need to do your research. Never, ever, ever purchase gift cards or use crypto ATMs to pay for a service. There are other ways to pay. That's a big red flag. Verify and slow down and tell someone else. This is what I was going to say. All right, there's 3 benefits to telling someone else. One is they might have heard about that thing. There's lots of different variations of scams, imposters, and maybe your friend, your family member, your spouse, your child has heard of that same thing, and they go, oh my gosh, I got that last week too, or my sister, this person had that happen, and you go, wow, glad I learned that was a scam and I'm not going to engage. So you tell someone else, they might know about it. The other thing that happens when you tell someone else is that it makes you pause. You're taking the time to stop and call someone else, tell someone else, call someone else, right? And the third thing, and I think this is the one that people overlook the most, what happens when we say something out loud versus think it in our head?
recorded.
Well, it could be recorded. I'm being recorded today, but it sounds really different. If I think in my head, some dream, or I really wish this thing would happen, and I think about it, I ruminate on it. But if I say it out loud, it sounds pretty ridiculous sometimes, right? So when we say something out loud, we often elicit red flags that we don't think about in our own head because we're wrapped up in our emotion. So tell someone else. If you walk away today with anything, that's what you do. before you do any engagement. All right. You need to know what your sources are. So you said, if they give you a list of references, well, I don't know those references, so I don't know those sources. So the securities regulators like us who regulate investments, we don't regulate cryptocurrency. Currently, there's not a regulatory scheme for cryptocurrency in the United States. There's some discussions. Sometimes cryptocurrency is considered an investment. Sometimes it's just considered more like a currency type such thing. So you need to know who your sources are. Who am I listening to? Who am I trusting? Why do I trust that organization, right? When the police department puts out an alert to warn you about certain types of scams, and it's coming from their legitimate public relations channels, and it's on your local news channel, all right, maybe that's a good source for you to listen to. When it's just being served up to you on the internet, maybe it's not. You need to play the devil's advocate and think, before I invest any money, what if this is a scam? What if I lost this money? Because even in legitimate investments, there's no guarantee of a return. I mean, there's some types of, you can reduce your risk. Certain types of investments have lower risk, but typically that equates with, lower volatility. Could it be an imposter? Do I feel emotional pressure? So I like to tell people another little trick. If the palms of your hands are getting sweaty, you're having an emotional reaction. Pause, tell someone else. Now, if you've ever bought a house or made a big purchase, you might have had sweaty palms, right? That's kind of a scary moment. But the point was, it took a while to do that. It took 6 weeks for that to close, right? So nothing needs to happen instantaneously. And be an investigator. So this is an email I got from the Social Security Administration. But when I looked at the email of the two, it actually was from faltaseni@faltaseni.ro. That means Romania. That doesn't sound like Social Security Administration, does it? The other thing I noticed, it says it's mobile access restricted. You must download a desktop app in order to communicate with us and look at your earnings statement. Why? Why would you send it to me on my mobile and then say I can't access it via mobile? That's because this was probably leading to what we would call a tech support scam, where they're probably trying to install some malware on my desktop computer to steal money that way. You can compare the from addresses. So the one thing I could do if I got that, which I did, you could run a search. Social Security Administration email. Okay, that's one way to say it. And it brings up all sorts of information about Social Security and how to contact them via email. What if I added the word scam to my search? It brings up a completely different search result. So one way you can also do some research is add, just like if you were checking out a restaurant and you said, yada yada restaurant negative reviews, right? Or yada yada restaurant reviews. You're going to get a different algorithm promoting different content. I'm not saying either one is accurate, but both provide information that you can use to make your decision, right? In this case, when I added the word scam, email scam, SSA email scam, that email that I got showed up here as a scam. Quick and easy, right? Just remember that you have tools if you really feel enticed. Most of the time, you should just walk away when you feel those overwhelming emotions. But if you really feel enticed, you have tools. And you need to use multi-factor authentication. Do any of you use that? Do you know what that is?
Tell
Yeah.
us.
All right. It is when you need to usually have a code sent to your mobile device or another device or an email to verify that you are who you say you are. It's like a second layer of protection when you're logging in, even if you already entered a password. That way, if your passwords have been compromised, you're still getting maybe a push text that says, here's a code. Do you ever give that code to somebody over the phone? No. Never, ever, ever. Those codes are being generated and used only to be entered in with that one little space. We are seeing some spoofing of these, but right now it's still a really effective strategy. And don't look at your financial accounts on public Wi-Fi. You might come here to the community center, and that's great, but while you're here, if you're on the public Wi-Fi, don't be looking at your bank and investment accounts. And I'm not saying that the Laurel Community Center is going to do anything bad with your information, but the thing is, it's actually really easy to set up a Wi-Fi. I could set it up on my phone, and you would log in, and it says Laurel Senior Center or Laurel, Community Center, North Laurel, I guess I am, and you don't know that I just made it up, and now I'm going to actually track you and follow your information. So just be careful with public Wi-Fi. Learn about cyber hygiene, we call it, cybersecurity practices, just to keep yourself safe. Use safe passwords, things like that. Because knowledge is your power. As an investor, you guys all said, and I'm going to wrap it up. I know I'm at time. All of you came today because you said you have an interest in investing in some way. Just ground yourself in what you're trying to accomplish. I think any investor would probably say, I'm trying to make money. Okay, all right, so let's just move that example off. What are you trying to accomplish with your investments? Well, how do you, okay, make money. I want to make money in my investments too. Do I want to sleep at night?
Talk to Nancy Pelosi.
I'm not here to talk politics, but the point being that you need to figure out what you're trying to accomplish with your different pockets of money. What do you really okay, yes, you want to make a return. To what purpose? What kind of risk do you want to take with that money? Are you willing to lose the money in order to potentially gain some more money? Can you not lose that money? You need to really think through what your risk tolerance is with that money that you're trying to invest. So you can, every time you get enticed by some investment opportunity, just remember, got to ground yourself in your goals. What is this really going to do for me? Is it in line with who I say I am, right? Who can help? You can talk to investment professionals. There's lots of different types. Some are brokers and brokerage firms, like I talked about. Some are called investment advisors. They might call themselves a wealth manager, a portfolio manager, might be a debt counselor, might be an insurance agent, might be an accountant. There's lots of different types of professionals that touch the financial space. And you could find someone who might help you with your goals if you want. And if you do, you said references. Here's an example of something you can do. If you are talking to an investment professional, or you have one, or you're thinking about having one, or someone invited you to a free lunch dinner and free lunch seminar and you really want to go, you can look them up in a free tool called FINRA Broker Check, and it's on the handouts I gave you today. And in Broker Check, it also connects to the Securities and Exchange Commission's investment advisor database. And so you can see if that professional is actually registered in the United States and licensed the way they said they are. So that is a way to verify information that's not relying on the information they gave you, right? And so then you can find out, are they registered? Do they have a disciplinary history? Sometimes there are financial professionals who have been disciplined because they, had some violations that they shouldn't have had. Sometimes they're true mistakes, and sometimes they're very egregious and they've been kicked out of the industry. And it'll still show up here with a big red, you can't see the colors, it says Joseph Q. Broker was barred. So if Joseph Q. Broker is trying to work with you and he's been barred from the industry, what do?
I don't work with them.
Don't work with him. You don't even need to call him back. You don't need to tell him why. Just never respond again, right? So this is, in the United States, investment professionals and people who give investment advice, with certain exceptions, but not the ones that really probably concern you, must be registered with FINRA, the Securities and Exchange Commission, or a state securities regulator, or in some cases, all of us. And so that's one way to make sure if you're looking for investment advice or financial advice in some way, you need to double check that they are registered. Yes, sir.
An idea I had was you have a credit card and you have a debit card and you make your buys with your debit card because you can control the amount and your exposure. Is that a good idea?
So there's two ways to think about that. A debit card would only limit your exposure if you keep that account low, right? So you can, for some people, they have multiple accounts. So my father, for instance, has a credit card that he uses for internet purchases. He never uses it for any other purpose. And so everything, it's easy for him to monitor. I mentioned back here, monitor and protect your accounts. You got to look at your statements. You have to actually look and see if things that are coming through are things that you authorized and purchased. So, but the thing with a debit card is you don't necessarily, depending upon the way the financial institution set it up, have the same protections that you might with a credit card. So credit card purchases, sometimes they can be reversed. So the debit card might have to be investigated before you get the money back, whereas the credit card, you might be able to get the reversal of the transaction at a faster rate. So it depends who you are, but separating your accounts and having them in really monitorable ways is really a great strategy for being able to keep track of everything. FINRA has a helpline if you have concerns about an investment professional or an account, or if there's something on a statement that doesn't look right, or maybe you see a promotion going on that you want to be able to report or ask questions about. You can call the FINRA Securities Helpline for seniors. You don't have to be a senior. You can be actually any age. They've answered the phone for 17-year-olds and 107-year-olds. And this number is also on the handout I gave you, so you don't have to try and take a picture of the screen. And the SEC also has a line where they might have an opportunity to call you back as well. And we take tips and referrals if you see something that looks shady. FINRA does not oversee investments that aren't real investments or professionals that aren't real professionals. But we refer cases all the time to the FBI, to the Secret Service, to many other agencies, to local police departments, to white-collar criminal units, to the SEC, to the Department of Justice. So all of us operate with this policy that if we see something that's criminal happening in the United States, we want to report it to an authority that has an opportunity to take action on that. I mentioned FINRA.org investors. It's on your materials. That's our website. There's all sorts of other great information on there. Our Investor Insights articles come in two fashions. There's a 411 and the 911, right? We all know what 911 is. Right? 411 is good to know. Might want to know about it. Maybe I didn't need to know it today, but I'll save it for the future. So there's some of the information is really like urgent alerts, and some of the information is more like what is day trading, what is cryptocurrency, right? So we have all that sorts of information on there for you. And the SEC has a wonderful website called investor.gov because you don't need to remember SEC, you just need to remember what's the federal government's agency that protects us as investors. That's at investor.gov. And there's, I mentioned state securities regulators. There's an organization called NASA, the North American Securities Administrators Association, not NASA that is right down the street. And they oversee or represent and work with all the state securities regulators. So you can find yours, and you're here in Maryland, so there's one here in Maryland as well. And like I said, we want to hear reports. We want to know when things aren't looking good, and we really want to know if you've had a problem. Speed matters. The sooner you report, call your local police department, call the Consumer Protection Agency. They can help direct you to the right resources, but the sooner you report a problem, the more likely it is that you'll have some opportunity for a better outcome. If you send cryptocurrency to someone or you buy a stock that ends up tanking because you got a quote unquote tip, you're not necessarily going to get your money back. But there are people out there, and we're working as agencies to try and find better ways to protect consumers and help before you lose that money.
Some online organization business, can we check online business?
Online businesses?
Yeah.
So it varies. So you can check, most states have a state registration for businesses that is required for business licenses. Online businesses, it depends how they're operating, but anybody can create a website.
I was searching the annuity, I was searching for the annuity.
Oh, you were searching for an annuity?
For the fixed annuity. And the return was more online, like a gain breeze. But you have to do online business only.
Yeah.
So how can we check via FINRA whether this?
I would encourage you to learn more about how annuities are sold and purchased along the way. I don't have any way of telling you.
That was online business, means gain breeze. So
yeah,
we can check through the website or FINRA.
If they're selling you an investment, So it might be that they're registered as an insurance. It depends. Every state's a little bit different of how annuities are qualified, variable annuities, equity indexed annuities, fixed annuities. So depending upon the type of product that they sell, they might be registered with FINRA, they might be registered with the state, or they might be registered with the insurance. So you could call the Maryland Insurance Commission, and I don't know what it's called here, do you know?
Maryland Insurance Administration.
Maryland Insurance Administration, and see if they're licensed to sell products in the state of Maryland.
But
Okay.
anyway, about the crypto, it's a digital currency and it is working all over the world. What is?
So there are thousands of different types of cryptocurrency names. You've heard of Bitcoin, you've heard of maybe Ether, you've heard of Litecoin, you've heard of stablecoin, you've heard of different Tether, you've heard of different, Tether's a stablecoin, but you've heard of different types of cryptocurrencies. Well, there's thousands of them, and they're created all the time, and really it's just a token. So let's say you and I want to trade. It's almost like an old barter system. It's sort of back to the old barter system. You and I want to trade, and I want to give you a piece of land. Just say, I mean, you're going to buy a piece of my land. But it's hard for me to carry the land around in my pocket, and it's still going to, the land's going to be where it is, right? So I'm going to give you this piece of paper that says that you're the landowner, okay? We would call that, you know, sales documents, business documents, right? So cryptocurrency is a form of a representation of ownership of something. In this case, it's used to purchase and things, but it's more frequently used. Do you see people buying pizza with cryptocurrency? Domino's allows it. But what if it goes up tomorrow and you paid like $10,000 for your pizza that you paid $10 for the day before, right? It's maybe not a good way to use your cryptocurrency. But cryptocurrency is less frequently used as a payment method, particularly in the United States, although some countries have found that it is a more stable way to exchange value because they may not have governments that have a trustable type of currency. So it's taken off particularly in countries where their government-backed currency might be manipulated or there might be some corruption. And so cryptocurrency in and of itself is not something, I'm not saying good, bad, anything. It's that it is being manipulated by the scammers because it's new and it's electronic and you have very few ways to verify it. So unless you are interested in arbitrage of the euro against the dollar, I want you to also think the same way about cryptocurrency. Are you looking to trade currency? Or are you looking for an investment? That should guide who are you as an investor. That can help guide what decisions you want to make.
So Bitcoin is a currency of crypto? Just
Yes.
Digital.
It's a digital currency, yeah.
So suppose you have 1,000 Bitcoin, you can exchange for the dollar in another place. How?
So you have to be able to exit it ultimately. Yeah, you're right. So there's on-ramps and off-ramps to cryptocurrency. You have to get the current cryptocurrency, but ultimately in order to use the cryptocurrency, you kind of have to go off-ramp it to a currency again, right? To a fiat currency, we call it. A fiat currency means a currency backed by a government, right? So the US dollar is a fiat currency.
But it is not regulated by government, right? There is no, not like a dollar or something.
It depends. So Bitcoin, and I'm going to get closer to
Yeah,
your...
here, I'll let you
so
talk.
From what I understand, Bitcoin is considered a commodity because people had to do something to create it. They had to run these mathematical calculations.
It depends how it's being used as to what it is qualified as. So there are cases where it is an investment. There are cases which is a commodity type of investment. There are cases where it's being sold as a future of some sort. There are cases in which it's simply a currency and we're looking for, does it rise in value or sell in value, and does that make it an investment? Or does it just mean I'm thinking of it as an investment, but it doesn't qualify as an investment?
Right. So basically the long answer is there's some regulation depending on how and where it came from. So the Commodities Futures Trading Commission has jurisdiction over the commodity or the future use of it. But then the trading piece of it, maybe the SEC has a piece of it. if there's, brokers involved, FINRA has a piece of it. It's really a patchwork quilt, but the quilt is made out of lace because it's got a lot of holes in it. Is that a good way of saying it?
Yeah, that's a good way to say it, which is the regulatory environment is evolving because we kind of got out ahead of ourselves, right? We didn't, but it was created globally, right? So the cryptocurrency came out before a regulatory environment to regulate the cryptocurrency and the platforms. So for instance, if you want to buy a stock and you go into a stock market, stock exchange place to buy that, whether it's go in or, what I mean, electronically, those markets are regulated. They have rules they have to follow. They have regulators that are watching what they do. They have to report data, report trades. We verify information. And so the regulatory environment, while not always perfect, provides a tremendous amount of oversight. And whenever you're working in a place where there's not a regulatory structure in place, you're putting risk in trusting that nothing will go wrong. You have no recourse if something does go wrong. And you might not even be able to verify that it's a legitimate thing. So again, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, do your research, learn a lot about crypto, but the point of today's conversation was really that it doesn't matter whether it was crypto or other types of investments, it's about manipulation. The fraudsters are luring and pitching us things that are really phantoms. And so it's our job, unfortunately, to fend them off, to recognize it, and to maybe set the strategy ahead of time so that it's easier to just know that I'm not going to look at investment club ads on my social media because that's not where I'm looking for my investments. So make some rules for yourself to figure out who you are so that you can weed out the things that come to you unsolicited, because that's really often where the danger lies. And I'm over time, but I've really had a great conversation with you today. And I'll stay around if you have other questions. Thank you.